welcome back to Swiss Army Guitar. Today I'm going to start part one of my 3 shapes to master the guitar neck. Now this is something that recently I have discovered and have adapted to my technique, and I'm so excited to share it with you. Basically what I'm going to be doing is simplifying the guitar neck down to 3 basic shapes that you can put together in different combinations. And by simplifying the guitar that much, your fingers are going to start to develop a muscle memory that's going to connect to your ears, so you can also be able to play what you're hearing in your head. Now, don't be overwhelmed by this. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I think the way that I'm simplifying it and presenting it to you is going to really reduce the amount of time that you're going to need to master this. If you like my videos and you like what I've been doing, please be sure to like and subscribe below, and let's get started. Today's video is part 1 in my 3 Shapes to Master the Guitar Neck series. And we're going to be talking strictly about tonal music. And in my introduction performance, I used a major scale. And I was just going through something called the circle of fifths to just demonstrate how you can master the neck to a point where you can play the major scale all up and down the neck and use any major scale. Now, I'm choosing the major scale because most scales are based off the major scale. So inside the major scale, there's also the minor scale and there's dominant scales. And we're not going to really talk much about the theory behind that right now. We just want to get playing. We want to use our ear. And when we practice the major scale, we develop our ear. We become more creative creating melodic phrases. And we build our confidence that we can get around. And the interesting thing is, once you build up muscle memory in your fingers, you'll start to see that your fingers just kind of know where to go. And for years, I did nothing but play pentatonic scales over everything I played. And all that did was make me sound very mechanical. And the things I was hearing in my ear, I couldn't get them to come out. But once I started practicing the major scale, I could start to hear that, hey, not all music, especially rock music, is based on a pentatonic scale. It's all very major scale oriented. And I started to realize that things in my head were starting to go through my fingers, and it's really interesting. And I really don't think it takes a ton of practice to get to that point either. Now, I really want to simplify things here. When we're talking about tonal music, there's really only 3 possible shapes on a guitar that you can play on one string. You could play, and if I use, 1, 2, 3, 4 frets, and I name my fingers finger 1, 2, 3, and 4, we have a 1, 2, and a 4. We have a 1, 3, and a 4. And then what I like to call is a stretch, a 1, 2, 4 stretch. 1. So all 3 of them would be 1, stretch, 1, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 4. Now, every piece of the major scale on the guitar neck is going to contain just those 3 shapes. And that really simplifies everything that we're going to do. Today I'm going to use 2 of those shapes and use our knowledge of octaves in the B string to show you how you can piece them together and play the major scale up and down the guitar neck. So let's start in the key of A. And if you remember from my finding notes on the guitar video, A starts on the 5th fret of the low E string. Okay, I'm going to start with the stretch 1, 2, 4 shape. So it's on the 3 dotted frets right there, and they're all 1 fret apart. So this one, go up 2 frets, go up 2 frets. That's the first 3 notes of the major scale. Do, re, mi. Now, going to the next string, the A string here, the 2nd string down, you can play that same exact shape. And you've got fa, sol, la. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. And the interesting thing is, from this note to this note is really only a half step. Listen. So when you're going up, and you know you're going to have to go up a half step, by stretching and crossing strings, you can also hit that half step. If you get stuck anywhere and you're thinking, okay, I need that note, it's right there. Keep that in mind. So we've got do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. And we're using just one shape so far, the stretch 1, 2, 4 shape. Now, if we kept that going, it's going to sound a little strange. It's actually a scale. It's going to be a scale called Mixolydian, but we don't need to get into that right now. If I play 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, and 1, 2, that doesn't quite sound like the, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, da that you might have heard in Sound of Music. So we have to make an adjustment, and we have to move this note up. So listen to this. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Okay? There's the major scale. And in this one, I'm using the 1, 2, 4. That's not the stretch shape. But I'm also not playing this note just yet because there's my octave to A. So I'm just going from A to A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. And you don't even have to think of the notes. Just think of it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now we're at that octave, and here's the really cool part. I can start playing that same exact pattern of notes right there. Do, re, mi, 1, 2, 4 stretch, and then go 1, 2, 4 stretch again on the next string. Just an octave higher. But if you remember in my Finding Any Note on the Guitar Neck video, the B string is the weird string. It really should be tuned to C if we were, tuning every string's distance to the next one at the same. But because of fingering and making certain chords easier to finger, guitarists years and years and years ago decided to tune that string to B. But all it does is it moves anything that you would have played up a half stretch. So up a fret. So listen, if we're doing do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, notice that this note right here is just a fret up from the stretch shapes. When I go here, if I did that same thing, that just doesn't sound right. Ugh. So instead, we'll go move it up a fret, and now we've got what we're looking for. So and I normally would play here, but since it's on the B string, I'm going to move up, and then I can start here and do the same thing. But you'll notice, oh my gosh, there's no string over here for me to do this part. Dun, 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 dun. I can't get that part. But here's the cool thing. I just go up 2 frets and play it there. So now I've got the whole A scale across the entire neck. Had to move up a fret there because it's B, and I had to go up 2 frets because I'm crossing strings there. Now remember before when I said when you go from here to a stretch, that's a half step? When I go from here to here, that wasn't a half step. That's a full step. That's 2 frets. So I had to bring my finger up a half fret there. So when I get up here, I want to go a full fret to get there. Okay? Now here's something really cool that I think you might like to see. I'm going to pick another A right here. This A right here. I can do that same pattern of those two shapes together here as well, but since the next string over here is B, whatever I would normally play, I'm going to have to scoot up a half fret. So instead of going, which doesn't sound right, I'm going to go scoot up a half fret, and now I've got, in fact, that pattern of the 1, 2, 4 stretch, 1, 2, 4 stretch, and 1, 2 can be played on one string. I could go 1, 2, 4 stretch. Remember, I would want a half step to go to my next note, which is right here. So I could go 1, 2, 4 stretch, go up a half or a half step, a fret, and go 1, 2, 4 stretch again, then go up a 2 frets, a whole step, and do the last part. So those shapes even fit together on one string. Like here, I ran out of a string, so I just added the next shape 2 frets up. On this one, I decided not to change frets at all. So you'll start to get to that point too, and you can even start on an open string. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. That's like a 1, 2, 4 stretch, except my first finger doesn't play the open string. So one, 2, 4 stretch, 1, 2, 4 stretch, 1, 2. 1, 2, 4 stretch, up a fret, 1, 2, 4 stretch, up 2 frets. So you can play. Oop. Okay, this is just an additional little segment for those of you that are visual learners. Being a teacher, I know it's always better for retention when students make discoveries on their own, but if you haven't made them from seeing me play these shapes on the guitar, I want to give you a demonstration on how all the pieces fit together. Now I have all the notes placed together like they would be on one string, and they fit the keyboard like this because you've got your root to root here. And let's just say for right now, to compare it to the diagram, this is a C note and this is the higher C note, an octave higher. You've got C, D a whole step away to E, and E and F are only a half step. Then you've got G, A, B, and a half step between B and C. So it's almost like all these blank frets you're not playing are the black keys on a keyboard. Now, let's say that you don't want to keep switching your hand position to get from the 1, 2, 4 stretch to the next 1, 2, 4 stretch and then to the 1, 2. You could take this shape right here and play it on the string next to it. Now the guitar is tuned in fourths, so it's going to go right next to that C or that root note because this note is 1, 2, 3, 4 away. So it's tuned to fourths, so you're going to play right next to it, and this is going to follow right behind. So if you wanted to play the whole entire major scale on 2 strings, it would look like that. Now, if you didn't want to make this hand position change, you could play this on this string as well, but notice that you've got a whole step here. So this note is actually going to be higher than this note. So instead of placing it a fourth above, it's going to go right here. So that was our basic shape that I was demonstrating for the major scale. Now, the only exception to how this is fitting together would be if you were going from a G string to the B string. And remember, the B string is actually tuned a half step down to make certain shapes easier to play on the guitar. So everything that you want to play anywhere else in the neck the B string is going to have to be played one step higher. So you would just move everything one step higher. And that would be what the shape would look like, or the major scale would look like, if you were playing it on the G, B, and high E strings. Now, you could also take this and put it over here so that you're playing on the G and B string only. And these shapes can be just rearranged like that all over the neck. Now, what I would do is I would practice doing that, and I would go through the circle of fifths. Start maybe in the key of A if you're comfortable with that. And then from there, you would go to the key of D. So start on a D note. Now here's where I am switching to the B string, so I want to go up a half fret, or 1 fret. Okay, then go to G, the G scale. B string, so I have to go up a fret. I'm out of strings, so go up 2 frets. And then go to C. And then try doing them all on one string. So, practice that, going through the circle of fifths, and then don't forget to go backwards also, like in the key of C, you might go. Okay. It's a little more challenging, but what I like to do is I like to think, okay, I'm starting here, and I have to end here, so I can now visualize that 1, 2, 4 stretch, 1, 2, 4 stretch, 1, 2. So now I'll go backwards. When I started here, I knew I had to go here for my octave C, so I know that I'm going to have that weird B string part in here, so I'm going to have the 1, 2 shape right here. Then I'm going to have the 1, 2, 4 stretch here, and then I'm going to have the 1, 2, 4 stretch here. Now it's going to take a while for you to visualize it in your head. You could draw it on paper if that helps you, but I really think it's a good idea to just stop and picture it before you play anything. Okay, if I'm picturing this forward, I'm seeing, so now I can go backwards. And finally, another way to practice this is to build up melodic phrases, because after all, we don't want to just run up and down scales. That's not making music. We want to make melodies. So maybe just pick a melody like, and then go. And when you start doing that in different spots of the neck, it really opens up your ears, and you'll start to see that, oh, it's so different right here, because this is that B string. What I was doing here and what I was doing here won't work here. This doesn't sound right because that's that B string, and everything you play on the B string needs to be 1 fret higher. So 1 fret higher. But then your fingers start to build that muscle memory, and they start doing things on their own, and what you hear in your head will start to translate much easier to the guitar. So I know that's a lot of information. You just have to kind of take it slow, but try to really simplify what I've talked about. There's only 3 shapes on the guitar: 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 4 stretch. The major scale that I'm teaching you today, this version of it, just uses 2 of those. It uses the 1, 2, 4 stretch on the first 2 strings, and then the 1, 2, 4, but we're taking the 4 out because we just need to end here. So we're just doing 1, 2, 4 stretch, 1, 2, 4 stretch, 1, 2. And that 1, 2 is a fret higher until you get to the B string. 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4 stretch, and then up a fret because it's the B string. 1, 2. And then practice downwards as well. Practice through the cycle, the circle of fifths, and practice just making melodies and playing them off of every A. And then change keys for D. And then go to G. And just make up a melodic phrase and play it all over through all the major scale shapes. In part 2, I'll show you a different combination of those shapes to still play major as well. And eventually we'll develop that into being able to use a different kind of shape and pattern through different chords of a chord progression, but that's coming way down the road. So just take it a little bit at a time. Maybe there's something in there that I talked about that might inspire you, but I promise you if you pick up the guitar and start practicing this, you are going to inspire yourself. So, this is Mike Andrews, Swiss Army Guitar. Please like and subscribe if you like what I'm doing, and we'll see you next time.